is a global leadership crisis. It is humanity in crisis of identity that has led to the crisis in our leadership, in most leadership today. Look at the war that is being fought in Ukraine. You can trace that war down to what? Egocentric leadership. It is simple.
It is so difficult to understand it that I just respect my nature. I respect the water because the water is the source of my life. I respect the trees because if I destroy the tree, there is no oxygen anymore. Therefore, I will die. It is stupidity on my part to destroy the nature where I live. So we are just simply saying, respect the cycle of life.
Your spiritual health, feeding your spiritual life outside religion. Don't forget, religion produces avenue for you to identify your spirituality, but religion is not spirituality. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, viewers, depending on your time zone and where you are located. Once again, we want to thank you for being part of this podcast whenever you are listening to it. My name is Oluwafemi Esan. I'm a professor of transpersonal psychology, the vice chancellor of London University. I'm also, by grace, the ambassador of the Sovereign Kingdom of Hawaii to London and ambassador of the Sovereign Kingdom of Hawaii to European Union. I'm also a roving ambassador of the State of Africa Diaspora, the sixth region of the African Union. Today, I'm going to share with you one of the training that we had with the ambassadors at the State of African Union, where we explore the transpersonal, leadership philosophy in international relations and diplomacy. And so our focus today is on the transpersonal, leadership philosophy. We quickly go through certain learning outcome before we finish today. But the core of what I want us to look at is the transpersonal leadership philosophy itself. So we will start with to lay some foundation in terms of terminology to build upon this concept of leadership and this philosophy of leadership emanating from the transpersonal psychology. Now, what is transpersonal psychology? It is a psychological theory that explores human nature in a holistic way, incorporating the mind, the body, and the spirit. Transpersonal theory suggests that there are developmental stages beyond the adult ego, where people can experience a connection with the phenomena outside of the ego. These experiences can lead to the development of altruism, creativity, and intuitive wisdom. Transpersonal psychology incorporates a wide range of ideas and from different disciplines, including philosophy, literature, health theories, heart, social theory, and different spiritual traditions. Now, what is the core ideology of this theory? It is an holistic concept of man, incorporating the mind, the body, and the spirit. So, in other words, transpersonal psychology is built on the tripartite concept of man, which is coming from religious tradition, theological foundation in the Abrahamic religion there. Not only that, it is also coming from the indigenous African spirituality, beliefs in agreement with the three Abrahamic religion, that man is a tripartite being. What does that mean? Man is a spirit, he has a soul, he lives in a body. Now, this foundation is the concept whereby we build the entire transpersonal leadership philosophy upon. What is transpersonal? Transpersonal is talking about an existence beyond the embodied transpersonal self. If you look at this Venn diagram, man being a trichotomy, a tripartite being. Man is a spirit, he has a soul, he lives in a body. Now, what is the essence of man? What is the true nature of man according to transpersonal philosophy? Man is a spirit. So transpersonal psychology is also known as psychology of spirituality or spiritual psychology. It is built on the ontological concept of spirituality. So it is built on the spiritual framework that says spiritual identity is the true essence of who we are, not just a component of our identity. I will say that again. Spirituality is a true essence of who we are, not just a component of our identity. Therefore, man is a spirit, he has a soul, he lives in a body. If you look at the dominant philosophy of leadership, is built on the ontology of dualism, which is mind and the body. And this is a major deficiency in approach to personal leadership development and personal development itself. So when you look at a leader, who is a leader? If you look at a leader just based on his mind and body dualism, that leader developmental process is not holistic. So what transpersonal psychology or framework of leadership is providing is an holistic developmental process into personal leadership development. We are talking about a leader developing the three domains of his existence: spiritual development, psychological development, and physical development. I will say it again, an holistic development of the leader. In what? In essence, the leader is right there, living in the consciousness and in the reality of his spiritual existence, and is leading from the place of spiritual identity. You see that? And therefore, that leader is going to have an holistic development, and he will be able to govern his leadership philosophy based on his transpersonal development, incorporating the psychological well-being, that is the emotional well-being, mental well-being, and the physiological well-being into his self-psychology. The problem we have today is leaders that are operating based on dualistic identity of the mind and the body. Therefore, their development is not holistic. Why do we need holistic development in this 21st century? We can see that the whole world is in crisis of identity. And that identity is built on the embodied self. So we're not talking about spiritual identity. That is the core philosophy of transpersonal theory of self. Now, the transpersonal theory of self is built on the spiritual identity of human being. And what is spiritual identity? Spiritual identity is a sense of peace and purpose that comes from an individual relationship with a higher power, or a sense of being a spirit being. That is very important. A sense of being a spirit being. Now, the spiritual identity is built on a sense of self. Now, that sense of self is built on the ontology of spirituality. That is, you have a sense of being a spirit being. Spiritual identity is about understanding who you are in a relation to a higher power. Spiritual identity is also very important in the sense that it leads you to find meaning in life. People who find meaning in their lives through a relationship with a higher power may feel a sense of safety and purpose, a sense of being a spiritual being. This is a core fundamental theory of transpersonal psychology's theory of self. A sense of being a spirit being. Some people may describe their spiritual identity as being a spirit being in human flesh rather than a body with a spirit. That is very important. That a spirit is not just a component of who you are. You are a spirit being in human flesh. Now, this is a foundational ideology of the sense of self in spiritual identity. Why is this very important? If you look at today's leadership that is built on materialistic ontology, a lot of leaders are suffering from crisis of identity because they are in leadership position based on ambition, not based on purpose. And when you are pursuing a leadership agenda that is built on ambition and not on a true sense of purpose, what will happen to the people? That is why today, arguably, we are experiencing a crisis of leadership in the 21st century, because we have leaders in political arena, religious arena, in different fields of human endeavor, in the different systems of the world that are operating in the dualistic of mind and the body. They are completely ignorant of the essence of their true spiritual identity. And when you lack that essence of a true spiritual identity, your decisions will be based on materialistic agenda. That is, pursuing your personal agenda. And that is going to be ruling your entire leadership philosophy. In essence, that leadership is going to be built on the ego. Notably in the history of leadership of the world, we have seen leaders that have come and leaders have gone. And leaders have shown, that they go there and pursue the agenda, and when they do that, what happened to the people? The people suffers because the leader has not been able to identify themselves as a spirit being, but they see themselves as a material being, and that materialism has crept into every facet of their leadership position, which leads to self-gratification, self-preservation, embezzlement, corruption. In other words, ethical leadership is lacking in most leadership arena. And the call for ethical leadership, we argue in the transpersonal movement, can only be achieved by a transpersonal reality of self. Because ethics come from your understanding of a value system that is placed on your sense of self. In other words, to have a sense of self is built on a discovery of who you are. And who you are, that is, your sense of self, determines your value system. I'll say that again. It's your sense of self that influences your value system. Therefore, if you have a leader that is operating from a materialistic sense of self, their value system is going to be based on materialism. Whereas when a leader, all of a sudden, through transpersonal experience, transpersonal inspiration, discover their sense of self as being a spirit in human body, what that automatically does to you is that you begin to detach yourself from your self-esteem based on material accumulation of things and material criteria. The beauty of transpersonal sense of self is that you detach yourself from the trappings of material identity, in the sense that you are not qualifying your sense of self-worth based on your material accumulation, your bank account, your degrees. No, your sense of self is that you are a spirit being in a human flesh. And you understand that as a spirit being, your existence is beyond time and space. As a spirit being, you came to this world with a purpose, and when you finish your assignment, you will leave. So you came with nothing, you will leave with what? Nothing. Can you imagine if you have leaders understanding this? All the embezzlement, all the corruption, all the materialistic accumulation at the expense of true leadership will be dissolved. So, transpersonal sense of self, that theory suggests that there are developmental stages beyond the adult ego, and that these stages involve experience of connected with phenomena that are outside your material self, your ego self. In other words, the sense of identity or your sense of self extends beyond the individual or personal, to encompass a wider aspect of humankind, life, psyche, or cosmos. Now, the transpersonal self is a concept in transpersonal psychology that refers to experiences that extend an individual's sense of identity beyond themselves. That's too beautiful. That you understand that I am not alone. I came here as a spirit being living in a flesh to do a particular work, that is the sense of purpose. This is very important because purpose-driven leadership can only be seen in spiritual self. That's it. Now, the spiritual self is the authentic part of a person that is connected to everything and is a source of inner wisdom and resilience. It can also be described as a persistent sense of self that addresses the meaning, purpose, and nature of life. Your spiritual self is you in your most beautiful and powerful form. It is the authentic self, the unconditioned part, the you without patterns. This is personal for each of us. So they don't need to get caught up in the language. Now, many spiritual traditions around the world teach that divinity is within us, including Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Native American, mystics, and indigenous African religions. So you can see that this spiritual self is a universal concept in every culture of the world. And that spiritual self says that there is divinity is within us. And that divinity means you are a spirit being living in a flesh body. And that is your true, authentic self. Connection to that self will give you the privilege of tapping into inner wisdom and resilience. Don't forget also that building a spiritual resilience comes from the experience of the spiritual self. It also helps the leader to cope with his mental health challenges. We are talking about spiritual resilience that comes with the pressure of leadership in the 21st century. So when you discover your spiritual self, you are able to build inner wisdom and spiritual resilience to withstand the challenges of leadership. And this is very important, that now we now look at the principle of a transpersonal leadership and their development. Now, a transpersonal leader is defined as an individual that operates beyond the ego while continuing personal development and learning. They are radical, ethical, and authentic, while they are also emotionally intelligent and caring. As we see, the term transpersonal refers to trans, meaning to go beyond, and personal, which refers to the ego. This new leadership style places emphasis on transcending the ego. At first glance, it doesn't appear to be a big shift in the leadership paradigm frequently touted. However, a person's ego can get in the way of making effective decisions and typically does not readily relinquish power. So transcending the ego is not as easy as it might seem. We can see it is a universal agreement that the most dangerous part of leadership is the ego. We are talking about how will a leader transcend their egotistical nature. That is where transpersonal leadership development comes in. The core of this development is saying that transcending your egocentric leadership is one of the greatest for the limitation of most leadership environment in the world today. Leaders are being ruled by their egotistical ambition. And we argue in transpersonal movement that to be able to transcend the ego, you need to experience transpersonal leadership development. So this transcending the ego allows you to make decisions purely out of your intuitive wisdom, because transpersonal development allows you to tap into spiritual intelligence and intuitive wisdom. You see that? And then you are able to make a decision purely outside your ego. Therefore, the egocentric leadership that has become a pathological element in leadership development and in leadership sphere across the globe is one of the problems of the 21st century. And we see this egocentric leadership in every area of human endeavor: political leadership, religious leadership, educational leadership, healthcare leadership. In every area of leadership, man has been able to limit itself by his ego. And sometimes this ego are also damaged ego coming from childhood trauma. But in transpersonal development, you are able to transcend the ego. And you are able to make decisions based on intuitive wisdom, tapping to your spiritual identity. Transcending the ego doesn't mean doing away with it. Rather, it means being aware of one's mercy, self-seeking, fearful, and often compulsive motivation, and instead taking a broader perspective on a moral high road. Transcending the ego means operating from a deeper awareness that all things are interconnected. When experiencing a beautiful sunset, a soul-stirring piece of music, for example, during this transpersonal moment, a person transcends his or her self-consciousness and what is in it for me motivation. Now, this is crucial, especially in political leadership. What is it in it for me? Motivation. Why do people want to be a leader? What is the motive behind your leadership pursuit? What is it in it for me? What can I gain? What is it in it for me? Is that not the true motivation of most leaders? What is it in it for me? Motivation. How do you translate that? Through transpersonal leadership development. Because you are into leadership by purpose, purpose-driven leadership, visionary leadership can only be achieved through transcending the ego. Because there's a difference between ambition and true vision. You see that? So it's a very important aspect. Now, the transpersonal leadership integrate the intellectual. You see that? Intellectual, emotional, and spiritual intelligences. It is based on enabling leaders to transcend their egos and make decisions from higher levels of ethical and cognitive maturity. Transpersonal leaders are encouraged to be both radical and authentic, acting on rigorously tested values, deeply held ethical principles that inform strongly developed conscience. You can see this beautiful. This is so beautiful. Intellectual, emotional, and spiritual intelligences. You can see it's an holistic development. It is based on enabling leaders to transcend their egos and make decisions from higher levels of ethical and cognitive maturity. This is what we need today in our leadership development. Transpersonal leaders are encouraged to be both radical and they are authentic, acting on rigorously tested values and deeply held ethical principles that inform a strongly developed conscience and its conscience. Now, the underlying question for transpersonal leader is, who am I? Secondly, what will I do with whom am I? I'm going to spend a few time on this. A leader's sense of identity is the foundation of his leadership value system. I will say it again. A leader's sense of identity is the foundation of his leadership values and philosophy. Who am I? When you meet people and say, who are you? Oh, I'm a doctor. No, that's what we do. Who are you? Your sense of self. This is where the crisis lies. Because who am I is built on the trappings of materialistic reality. And that is the dominant concept of self within the human race. Humanity itself is suffering from crisis of identity because our dominant sense of self is based on materialistic ontology. So when you meet someone and say, who am I? I'm a doctor, I'm a nurse, I'm a pilot. And then they go further to their ethnic identity. Oh, I'm African. Yeah, I'm Spanish. Now, all these identities are built on what? The materialistic reality. But in transpersonal leadership, your identity is built on you are a spirit being living in the human flesh. And spirit has no gender. There's neither Greek nor Jew in spirit because there's no ethnicity in spiritual identity. There is no gender identity in spiritual reality. We are all equal. We are all spirit. When you understand that you are a spirit, then you can transcend your bias and your ego. And again, the second question in transpersonal leadership development is, what will I do with whom I am? Clearly, this question demands extreme personal self-accountability and ethical responsibility. I've said it earlier on today. Ethical leadership can only be guaranteed in transpersonal leadership development. To be ethical in your leadership development, to work with ethics and to work in a high moral standard, you cannot understand the true sense of morality when you don't know that you are a spirit. Because until you understand the reality that you are a spirit being and you came to this world with nothing and you will leave this world with nothing, that will help you to drive on the moral high ground. Because now your decision is not based on gain of materialism. No. Your decision is not based on your self-esteem, based on your materialistic accumulation of things. Your decision is now based on intuitive wisdom, on spiritual intelligence. So you are ruling and you are leading through wisdom. And because you now understand the purpose of that leadership. Our problem today is that many leaders don't understand the purpose for their personal life. They've not discovered their sense of self as a spiritual being. Secondly, they have no understanding of their sense of purpose in life. Lastly, they don't even know the purpose of that leadership. Why am I in this leadership role? What will I do with who I am? Role modeling beyond the ego behavior and caring for others through what? Coaching and personal development are distinctive characteristics of this leadership style. You see that that's a coaching and what? Personal development. Because as a transpersonal leader, you cannot, but because you understand that I'm here in this leadership, I'm purpose driven, that every team member working with me are working with me to achieve the vision of that leadership. And they, in the process of them working with me, they also must discover their own personal sense of purpose. Imagine a leadership environment, culture, whereby every member of the team understand that they are purpose driven and they are part of the vision for that organization. Can you imagine? And your leader is personally committed to your personal development through coaching. This is the beauty of transpersonal leadership. A true transpersonal leader is a coach because they see potential in everybody. They understand, what will I do with who I am? They know that I am here for a purpose, and my purpose is to help every member of the team to fulfill the vision of the organization through the process of they themselves discovering their own personal purpose and maximizing their own potential through what? Personal development. Imagine you working under a leader that is committed to your personal development. Of course, you will commit your resources and time because you have a sense of belongingness and a sense that you are valid in that organization. It's very, very important. Talking about spiritual intelligence is defined as a human capacity to ask questions about the ultimate meaning of life and the integrated relationship between us and the world in which we live. It results in an increase in psychological well-being of the individual, as well as having a goal in their life. Spiritual intelligence is an ability to assess higher meanings. You see that? Values, abiding purpose, and unconscious aspect of the self, and to embed this meaning, values, and purpose in living richer and more creative life. Leaders with spiritual intelligence are shown to be more effective at empowering and inspiring their team. You can see that. Leaders with spiritual intelligence are shown to be more effective at empowering and inspiring their team. And the employees feel inspired twice are more productive than those who are merely satisfied. Even in terms of productivity within the team, a transpersonal leader with spiritual intelligence is arguably the best leader that will bring inspiration and productivity to the team. Therefore, we are saying today that the global world, the business world, the political world, the religious world need transpersonal leadership development. Thank you.
You see, this conversation is important in a variety of ways. It's important because as a people of African descent and as people that are maybe having a lot of connection to our people in Africa, we should care about leadership because the lack of leadership is what is affecting us in very many ways. We could look at immigration, for example. The reason a lot of Africans are dying in the Mediterranean Sea because nobody talk about that. There are a lot of thousands of African young people that are buried in the Mediterranean Sea, and nobody talk about them. These are things that really should worry us as people because you made mention of ethical leadership, and of course, we're going to talk about a number of them just now. I'm just making up mention of just one: immigration. Lack of quality leadership is resulting to that. We can talk about our economy, talk about the suffering of the people. Just now, I was watching a video that was published by the very dark man. The very dark man. That is the name of the guy, the Nigerian artist who is sort of holding a lot of people responsible, particularly on the online space. They were showing a number of people that were sleeping in the open air. Because I think this is happening in Abuja because the Nigerian government decided to demolish some place. So they abandon these people. They are in pain, they are suffering in the open air. Like I think that is a war. But there is no war in the country. But how can we allow our people to be suffering like this? We call ourselves leader. Then we can come to the business environment. A lot of people that are, I say this is an important conversation, brother. It's an important conversation. So first thing first, where is this idea coming from? Could you say something more about that? Then, of course, I have a number of questions to ask you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for the question. It's not just an idea, sir. It has to do with crisis of identity. So the question is, who am I? Are you a body, embodied self, or you are a spirit being in human flesh? So it's a question of identity, and identity is the foundation of leadership. If a leader's sense of identity is purely materialistic, there is going to be a problem. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for that. And I want to put the question to you like this again. Because yes, we care about our people, we care about what is going on there. Sort of help people to understand why this is important. Do you think that there is a leadership deficiency in Africa and among Africans? Because that's what we care about. I care about that most importantly.
Okay. Yeah, so I will not use the word deficiency. I will say leadership crisis. Yeah. So we have leadership crisis. And that leadership crisis is coming from crisis of identity, self-identity. So it is crisis of identity that leads to leadership crisis. So we are not saying that to develop a leader, what is that leadership self-psychology? What is that leader's sense of identity? That sense of identity is the foundation of his leadership value system, philosophy, and his behavior in leadership. Thank you.
Right now, for somebody looking at this transpersonal leadership philosophy, that is how we are titling this episode. Somebody might be saying, okay, wait, I'm hearing that for the first time. Is that a new approach to leadership? What do you say about that?
It's not a new approach to leadership. It has always been an ancient concept of self. If you look in the indigenous, if you see it there, you can see that transpersonal psychology has its root in many different transitions. It's multidisciplinary, especially it has its roots in different psycho-spiritual philosophy. So let's start from the indigenous African philosophy. The indigenous African spirituality believe in their own transpersonal identity, that we are spirit beings. That has always been the issue. So they believe in that. But what happened to us was the invasion of the colonial master with his dominant materialistic sense of self that invaded our psychological consciousness, and therefore we lose the essence of our true spiritual identity through colonization. That's what happened to us.
Thank you so much for that. I'm asking that question so that it helps people to understand that it's not like we are bringing something from only within the academia now. We are talking of something that we should already know. Because most of the things, why I like your approach a lot is that you are not like talking because you are a professor. Now people must come to the high hall before they can understand what you are talking about. You are telling them this is something that is already within you.
Yes.
You are looking for God. God is within you. You don't need to travel to the mountain before you can know God. Now remember that God is within you. Without God, you are not in existence. God is talking about the energy that is making you to be alive.
Yes.
So that even when you die, like we have talked about in a deep African spirituality, even when you die, you are not disconnected from God. Remember that?
No.
So you are not talking to people of something that they shouldn't be able to connect to. I think this is important for us.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Because this is what we are talking about.
Yes.
Are there some example of people that can exemplify what we are talking about today that we can learn from? Maybe in our culture, the one that we have read in the book, the one that we can. I want people to see that there are people that are maybe have exemplified what we are talking about here. Can you share with us?
Of course, don't go far. Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi, in India, Nelson Mandela. Why do you think Nelson Mandela walked out after 27 years of imprisonment and is talking about reconciliation and forgiveness? You cannot achieve that without transpersonal development, because you want to go out there and revenge. That is the human nature that is built on materialism. But he was able to transcend that bitterness of 27 years of imprisonment because of his transpersonal identity. He understands. And look at what Mandela did. He only spent one term in office. Why? He was able to relinquish power for the next generation. Thank you.
I want people to take a moment to reflect on that. You see, okay, I'm not saying Western politics are always better than African politics. Okay, we're talking of leadership. There is no way we cannot mention, or we can avoid, because okay, we are African. That is natural. We're talking about leadership. Leadership affects us. That is also natural. So it is natural that we talk about this. Yeah. You are saying Nelson Mandela only spent one term. I want somebody to remember that. Have we, maybe for example, when you look at Nigeria, you will see that somebody is dying. He will see her go to power. He want to pretend to be a leader. Yes, please tell us why.
Because their sense of self and self-worth is attached to that title. And that is a materialistic sense of self. That's why. So they hold on to title, because that title gives them a sense of self, and it's a false sense of self. You came to this world with nothing, you will go with nothing. So, and that's what transpersonal development does to you. You are able to transcend the ego and transcend the trappings of materialistic self. You are able to free yourself. What a burden to be lifted through transpersonal development.
Okay, now I want you to tell me, I don't know where you were, but tell me, where were you when Abacha died, the president, the head of state of Nigeria? Because that is going to be important.
I was in Nigeria.
Tell me what you were seeing around you at the time.
I was in medical school. We ran into it was raining that day. We were dancing in the rain. It was jubilation throughout.
All right. If Abacha didn't die, he probably would never leave the office. That is one. But there's another thing I want people to realize that after the death of Abacha, there was this mathematician. He was a professor in Nigeria teaching. I don't remember whether he was in Suka or so. He said, because he was carrying the news, that it was the first time he was hearing of the word trillion in reference to Naira, because then it was news were coming out of how much Abacha have stolen and hidden in I don't know whether it's Switzerland or in France. So why I am saying this is that if leaders lead because they want to lead people to a place, it is impossible for us to understand that you stole all this money that you could have been used to develop your people. You hide it somewhere in Switzerland. But when you die now, the Swiss government will not give this money to your people. With me, you make your people lose two times. One, they lost it because you took it away from them, and they lost it because they cannot use it to develop themselves. But that money will be used to develop other people. Please help us.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for this. It's a beautiful question you ask. And that is a core. And I'm using this opportunity that myself and Mr. Obi, we are offering a transpersonal leadership development course. It's the first thing we are going to offer, because this is the solution to our leadership crisis. I will explain that to you. Why is the man stealing money and keeping that money? His sense of self is purely a materialistic identity. A sense of self and sense of self-worth is built on a materialistic identity. Therefore, he sees that opportunity for self-gratification, self-preservation. And that's where the madness comes from, because you are accumulating that wealth because your own sense of self and your identity is built on a materialistic ontology. And we are still having that problem today. It's a problem coming from neo-colonization and the trauma of colonialism that has left our psyche to operate on survival, not to operate as a leader on purpose. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And I hope you hear what Professor Oluwafemi said. He's making his knowledge available for you to learn. Okay, listen, you don't need to be a politician. This leadership course is not about politics. It's about leadership. And leadership is in everywhere and anywhere. It is good for you in your home, in your family, whether it is just you, your wife, and your children. You need good leadership. Because if you don't do good leadership at home, the family, you might not break up, but you will build a time bomb. Yes. If you are in business, you need good leadership. You need to understand the concept, what we are talking about here. Because if you don't understand what happened, you will do like Abacha. Abacha is just one example, but many Nigerian politicians, including our democratic leaders that we have today, some of them are actually worse than Abacha. So that they are basically creating poverty for the people. Why? Because they don't know what they are doing. Africans, and a lot of Africans, are suffering from identity crisis. And you heard what Professor Oluwafemi said, that identity crisis is leading to the leadership crisis that we have. How? Yes. Because you don't know what you are doing. In fact, many African leaders are dangerous. Why? They are sitting on wealth, an extremely amount of wealth. And when you are sitting on wealth and you don't know what you are doing, you are dangerous, because you could be, it's like having a gun. You don't know what you are holding. You could shoot anybody. That is what they are doing. Mm-hmm. That is why you see that they do things that you cannot imagine, because they have extremely amount of resources and they don't know what to do with it.
I'm not going to say just only the African leadership. It's a global leadership crisis, sir. It's a global leadership crisis. It is humanity in crisis of identity that has led to the crisis in our leadership, in most leadership today. Look at the war that is being fought in Ukraine. You can trace that war down to what? Egocentric leadership. It is simple. The ego are fighting there. Okay? The ego, you can trace it. And not only that, the people being led also are also operating on what? Egocentric sense of identity. I'll say this about Nigeria, my beloved country. Look at the Gen Z generation. Look at the level of materialistic identity that is leading to the corruption of ritualistic money pursuit. Look at how materialism has dominated the consciousness of our youth. And then you are saying they are the future of tomorrow. So when they get into political leadership, what do you expect? And to the people that always criticize leadership, I always say this one thing. The leadership we have today in Africa, are they not the product of the community? Are they not the product of the society? A society that is being ruled by a materialistic value system, we have materialistic leader. It's simple. And that's my case.
Thank you so much for that, sir. I appreciate that. We agree on that. We agree on that perfectly well, that the leader are a reflection of the people, always, all the time. Always, all the time. And I say this quite often, maybe it might be controversial for some people, that if you bring the leadership of Obama, not because they are 100% better in that we also need to talk about the system, okay? But leadership also can lead to a system, because if you have bad leadership, they can even crumble the little system that you have. But if you have a good leadership and they have a bad system, maybe they can help to build a system, because anyway, it can go round and round. But what I wanted to say there is that if you bring somebody that is really good to come and lead Nigeria, he might have a very difficult job to do, because the people around you are going to corrupt you.
Thank you.
So that the leadership sometimes is a product of the people. But this is a caveat. This is a caveat here. If leadership is bad, we already identified that. The society is also bad. We already understand that. And now we want things to go good. Where do we start from? Do we need to change the people or change the leadership? Where do we start from now? Help me.
Yes. Where do we start from? The curriculum. What is the educational system? What is informing the primary socialization of every home? The educational system. Let me talk about the African psychology. The pre-colonial era. We Africans, In indigenous spirituality, we know we are spirit beings. Our forefathers know they are spirit beings, and that's why they are not materialistic. You see that? They know, they see spirit in everything, in nature. So they look after nature through spiritual eco-psychology. They have an understanding of the assessor, that I am accountable to my assessors. My assessor brought me here, and when I go, I leave the place for the one. I also become an assessor, and I leave the place for the legacy. So you now see, this is a pure African ontological foundation before the invasion of the colonial master that brought material wealth, which we have nothing against that. But you need spiritual intelligence to manage material wealth. But the danger today is that our psyche is encroached in materialism, and everybody is dominated by the material consciousness and self-identity. So we need to decolonize the curriculum, that people should understand a transpersonal philosophy of education. That is what we need for you to understand. You came to this world with nothing, you will go with nothing. Why do you want to kill yourself for material things? I rest my case.
All right. That is a good one. That is a good point there. We need to decolonize the system. All right. Fine.
Yes.
Last week, in our series that we call Life and Legacy, our Life and Legacy series basically go and pick an individual in the community, whether in the African diaspora or in Africa, who have made an impact in our life. Because, of course, again, we are standing on the shoulders of giants. That is why we can see far ahead of us. So we must understand that.
Yeah.
So in this Life and Legacy series, the one that we did recently, we talked about the life and legacy of Odumegwu Ojukwu, of course, who was the leader of the Biafra during the Nigeria Civil War. So in the course of the conversation, we were looking at the Nigerian situation, of course, just independence now in 1916. What kind of independence do we even have? And what were the mindset of the people as we lead the country forward? Of course, a lot of things came up in the conversation. It's 3 hours conversation, so it's going to come up later. Probably it's going to come up next month. So what I'm saying now is that we say we're going to decolonize the system. But do we really have the institutional requirement to do this? Do we have the people really able to do this? Because now to decolonize it, meaning we need to go into the educational system. There are some countries in Africa, I'm not going to mention name. Their curriculum are designed in France by the French Ministry of Education. That is where they design their curriculum in Africa. The books they read are coming from France. So with that in place, how do we manage to decolonize the system if they are the one having in charge of the apparatus of running the states?
Yeah, thank you. Just before I came up to this podcast, I was discussing with one of my associate pastor, and I said to him, after God, the next power that influences your life is political power. So to decolonize, you first of all decolonize the political leadership first. Political leadership is a key for change. And who are those people in political leadership? They are humans. So imagine if we are able to decolonize the political leadership through transpersonal leadership development, then the realization of the self comes in and said, wait a minute, I have to leave a legacy. I'm constrained by time. I'm going to die one day, and I will take nothing to heaven. Therefore, we need to build a legacy to free our people. So that is what we call self-realization, transpersonal self-realization. That is the key. It starts with the political leadership. Then we now move to the teacher education training. That's it. Political leadership, we have the political will to enforce that change into our teacher education system. That's it.
Okay, that is fine. If we manage to educate the political class, the system will change. That is fine. But how do we crack the code? Because now you are not able to get into the political class, because for you to get there, you must be part of the. One time I was interviewing a politician in the recent election. I'm not talking of hundreds of years ago. Actually last year, he told me that for you to participate in this politics, you are going to sell your soul. Okay, he didn't say it exactly like that, but that is what he intended. You need to belong to them in different way before you can be allowed to participate. You see, it's so complicated, I think. Of course, because I'm not a politician, maybe, I am seeing it from the outside, and I think it is complicated. I believe that there are some people in Nigeria who want to do the right thing, but either they are not able to get there, or when they get there, their mouth are quickly shut.
I don't believe in impossibility. Change is a weapon that starts from spiritual emancipation. I've said it before. The emancipation from mental slavery is a spiritual phenomenon. It is the day that your spirit eyes begin to open. You come to realization, who am I? Why am I here? That's a question. So it is possible. So the people that say you have to belong to certain things, we are not denying those things. But the question is, what is their motivation? You now see that transpersonal leadership asks the question, what is it in it for me, motivation? That's it. So why are you entering and selling your soul? You want to gain political power, materialistic accumulation of things. Is that not the purpose? But when you now experience true spirituality and identity, you understand that no matter how you sold your soul to gain the political power, death is a common factor. You will die and you will leave that power behind and the materiality behind. That's it.
All right. With me now that sometimes we might not like to participate in the book. What is it? I don't remember the name of the guy. It's a Ghanaian writer. We read this book in our time in the secondary school. It's called The Beautiful One Not Yet Born. And of course, then they were talking about the Ghanaian politics and of course the African politics as it were. That is sticking. That is how you describe it. It's dirty. It's really sticking in the nose, no? That sometimes you don't want to participate because you don't want to rub your name in the mud. Because it's like what that politician is telling me. If you don't participate, you cannot join. And if you don't join, you cannot be part of it. So it is, it becomes a little bit, I want to use the word again, it becomes a little bit more complicated than we think it is. But we can see now that people understand. You see, Thomas Sankara understands this. You see, the philosophy was very simple. What Thomas Sankara was saying that he would die for. That we in Burkina Faso, we produce what we consume and consume what we produce. This is not rocket science. What you were saying in the traditional African ecology is basically this, that we need to protect our nature because we depend on this to be alive. This is not, you don't need to go to school to even understand this. That is what the guy was saying. I believe that there are some people saying it in Nigeria, but I want to repeat that again. Sani Abacha didn't believe in this. Otherwise, his money shouldn't finish in Europe because his people are not in Europe. His people are in Nigeria. His people need to depend on his leadership. So if he's stealing the money and keeping it in Europe and in America, meaning he didn't believe what Thomas Sankara is saying.
No, so you know, it's not that many. There are many. You are just isolating one person. Millions of people are operating that mindset. But Obi, that's the reality. We are materialistic people. We live on survival mode. Accumulation of material things. Is that now why people kill for a pair of shoes? Talk to me, sir. What is their motivation? Leave the leadership alone. The dominant value system of our people, our psyche, we live on materialistic survival mode. That's it. And so when I have an opportunity of a sense of political power, I'm going there to preserve myself and my generation. I'm going there to steal. Are you talking about the Gen Z generation now? Look at the Gen Z generation, Brother Obi. The next generation, we are in trouble. We are in trouble, sir. The next generation, they are more materialistic, they are even more materialistic than the current political leadership. Let's be realistic. Who are we fooling? These are the future. So if we don't have an intervention, a strategy in place to decolonize our curriculum based on spirituality, go back to our indigenous African spirituality as the basis of our curriculum, our identity, we continue to have the same result. And that is the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. No, that is insanity. What is the problem? The problem is our sense of self. Our sense of self is materialistic. Imagine if you can remove that. Don't go far. Go to religion. Let's go to religion now. Look at not only Christian, every religion. Religion has become materialistic, and they are now making spirituality to become a materialistic identity. That is our problem, sir. Materialism, that's our problem.
Thank you so much for that. You know, I love what we are doing here. I love what we are doing here. So yesterday, I was having a philosophical thought. And this is what I was thinking. I was saying, I am really happy that I'm doing this work. I love what I'm doing. Then I would say, but somebody could say, well, you're not making a lot of money from me. You are stupid. You are a failure. I said, well, this is my response. I am working for the people that are not even yet born. I know that they are going to benefit from it. And I am not going to change them. I am just simply creating something that is going to benefit them. And for what benefit they are going to derive from me is up to them. It's not up to me. I am doing what I'm supposed to do. So your judgment of whether I am a success or failure doesn't depend on you. It depends on people who are not even yet born. So you can't criticize me.
Now, the person judging you, Mr. Obi, the person judging you is operating from a materialistic ontology. You can see that. The criteria saying, but Obi, you are not making money. Okay. So the question is, what is money? Money is a visible reward for a problem solved. And there are various ways of making money without becoming impactful. Is the money the only solution? No. Why do people have money in the bank and they are depressed? Have you not seen millionaires committing suicide?
A lot.
That is it. So again, you can see again, I just said that. So the person talking to you is operating from a materialistic ontology, and their sense of self and their value system, the criteria for judging people's life is based on materialism, and that's a problem. It's a global crisis, not just an African thing. It's a global crisis.
Thank you so much for that. I agree with you. I agree with you. It's a global situation. Yeah. You see, it's only that here I am really sort of focusing on the African and the African diaspora. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So this is our target. Now, why is transpersonal leadership approach a better one? Why is this better than the other? Because the capitalists do not reason like this. They don't see it like this. They are looking at getting in by any means possible. Getting in meaning accumulating any means, even if it means cheating you, it doesn't matter, no? But now we are saying that there is a better way to approach it. Why is it a better way?
Why is it a better way? Because you can look at the crisis of materialistic ontology. The World Health Organization said by 2030, the number one health condition in the whole world, both developing world and developed world and underdeveloped world, is depression. Sir, why are we having depression? Depression is the outcome of materialistic ontology, because we define our reality by materialism. We judge our sense of self and our sense of self-worth by materialism. And that is why transpersonal identity leads you to be able to transcend your material self, to see yourself, go beyond your ego self, to see that you are part of universal consciousness, to understand that, wait a minute, I'm a spirit being in a human flesh. I came to this world with nothing. I will live with nothing. That is the way out.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Professor Oluwafemi. I appreciate you. Now, speak to me about this. Who can benefit from this new approach of leadership?
Every human on this planet. You said something. You said leadership at home. Now, let's start from home. A man that is supposed to be a leader, that is driven by materialistic mentality and identity, what happened? Is all life is putting food on the table, is working? Yeah. Then his ego as a man, I'm the head of this family. What happened? You will see that man is going to be under pressure, not understanding that I'm a man, I'm a spirit being. Why should I kill myself? My duty is to provide for my own, but at what expense? Because that man's sense of identity is determined by materialistic criteria. So now the man is under pressure. Oh, I have this certain amount of money in the bank. Yes, I have to buy this car. My mates are buying this car. At my age, I've not achieved this. Look at that internal pressure, stress. Then he marries a woman that is also operating from the materialistic ontology and said, oh, you must buy this for me to show me that you love me. My love language is that you have to buy this material for me. If you're not buying this, we're not looking for, we're not looking after me. We have that generality. Oh, the man should look after me, should buy to, yes, to look after you and the family. But why are you putting the man under pressure? The man is constantly under materialistic pressure because himself is under a materialistic identity. The wife is also under materialistic identity. Who will suffer? The family. You see what happened to the kids because we are all operating a materialistic ontology as sense of self. But that's why transpersonal philosophy is not just for leadership, it's for human development. We need this curriculum in our schools today. When you understand that life has a meaning, I'm here for a purpose, then you're able to detach yourself from the trapping of material pursuit. Material things are meant to be used as a means to fulfill your purpose. It's a means to an end. It's not the end itself. But when you look at our sense of self and our consciousness, we see material things as the end. So we are accumulating it is a goal. And we are now beginning to compete with each other, putting ourselves under pressure. And that is the problem of humanity today. It's a global crisis.
It's a global crisis. Thank you for that. Now, you are saying, because you are the expert here, you are saying that this is a better approach to life. All right.
Yes.
Now, you also say that if we want to understand that, we need to go back to where we are coming from, which is our origin, our source. Because you see, many Africans try to buy into the idea that we are new here. We are not new here. We are the oldest. The African is the home of humanity. Our culture have the DNA that show how we survive in this terrible place. So the best thing that we can do is to really go back. I think it's true. Because our ancestors have lived and they have also left evidence of their life to show that this is what life is. If we refuse that, we are going to suffer. It's natural that we suffer.
No, we are suffering. We are suffering already. Look at the mental health. Look at the depression. Humanity is suffering. The mental health, and then we're talking about transpersonal mental health care, which we develop in our university. Approaching mental health from transpersonal psychology. You see that building spiritual resilience and building spiritual sense of self. Because I'll keep on repeating it. You came to this world with nothing, you will leave with nothing. You understanding that alone, imagine the internal pressure that will be off your life, how you approach life. Then you'll be contentment comes in. I eat food for the belly, belly for the food. They shall be destroyed in your day. You understand that? So I'm not living for my stomach. My stomach is not controlling my decision. I'm not selling my body for my stomach. I understand that life, I'm a spirit being. I'm a spirit being in a human flesh. Therefore, I'm here on an assignment because transpersonal development helps you to understand meaning of life. That when you understand the meaning of life, the mundane things now become meaningful. You know that you are working towards a purpose in your life. That what you do as mundane activities now have meaning. Is that not what the world is looking for? Is that not the reason why depression is on the increase? Why are we depressed? Because in spite of material comfort, leave Africa alone. Look at the developed world. In spite of material comfort, people are still committing suicide and they are depressed. Why? They've not found their true spiritual sense. The only sense they know is the material self. Therefore, if the void is in humanity, that spiritual void is there. Until you discover that true essence that you are a spiritual being, you cannot be fulfilled. And that is the problem we have with our mental health today, in both advanced world and underdeveloped world. Humanity have the same problem.
Thank you so much for that. Now, talking about leadership and transpersonal leadership based on the philosophy of course, leadership based on transpersonal philosophy. Are there some characteristics that can help us to know that these are the leadership that are operated based on transpersonal philosophy?
Absolutely, yes.
Please share with us.
They are, number one, they are ethical, they are authentic, they are radical, they are spiritually intelligent, and they are emotionally intelligent. Let's start with spiritual intelligence. When you understand I'm a spirit, that understanding alone forms the foundation of your value system. So therefore, I gain a leadership position. I'm already thinking, why am I here? what is the purpose of this leadership role? Leadership driven by purpose. Now, that purpose is not about ambition. We are talking about spiritual purpose, understanding that you are connected to an higher power. And higher power has put you on this planet for a reason. That is it. This has nothing to do with any religion, because you understand that life has a source. We are talking about ultimate reality. Yeah, the ultimate reality, that is transpersonal reality. We are connected to an ultimate reality. Your existence has a reason. That is the first thing. So when you have a leader that understands that I'm a product of a designer, therefore I'm in this position for a purpose. Because what happened to leadership? When purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. So all these things you are talking about, corruption, is an abuse of leadership. And that is what is happening. When you don't have a spiritual understanding of your leadership role, purpose, you abuse the leadership. Thank you.
Somebody might be wondering, how do you know this spiritual understanding? Professor Oluwafemi would say, go back to where you're coming from, understand your culture. Because now you don't need to say, oh, I am not a Christian, that is why I don't know. No. I should have been a Muslim, they should have taught me. No. If you are alive, you should know. Because if you don't know, go to your mother, go to your father, ask them how to talk to their father and their mother, to them and to them and to them. So that when we talk about spirituality now, it basically means connecting the dots.
Yeah.
Is the dots, no? That one lead to the other. Whereas when we are this intellectualized religion, for example, they cut you first of all, they cut the line that connects you, and they stitch you up with something that you don't know. So you are continuously confused, continuously. Then you are continuously asking them, please tell me, without you should have known. Because when you know through your ancestral lineage, your father, your mother, your father's father, your father's and your mother's mother, you can never be confused because you are connected. So that connecting to God, it is something that is, look at your umbilical cord and connect that to your father and your mother. It is not broken. That is why when they cut up your umbilical cord, they buried it in your land. So they tie you to your land. I was referring to this one of my writing, that I am connected to my land. So I have a direct relationship to my source. So you must know that for me to know my land, I don't need to go to school. I just need to go to my land and kiss it. That is my source.
We call it innate spirituality. You are born as a spirit. You don't need any philosophy, any training, any religion to tell it. It's called innate spirituality. You are born a spirit. That is who you are. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for being here. You are you are wonderful. You are wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your generation are happy. They are blessed.
Amen.
All right. Now, are they challenging? Because we can see the beauty of it, and we can also see how the world will become more beautiful if we were to live like this. Because, it is not difficult to understand it, that I just respect my nature. I respect the water because the water is the source of my life. I respect the trees because if I destroy the tree, there is no oxygen anymore. Therefore, I will die. It is stupidity on my part to destroy the nature where I live. So we are just simply saying, respect the cycle of life. Because, life is a cycle. If you destroy one part, you are not destroying something abstract. You are destroying who you are. You are part of the cycle. All right. And there's some challenges that we have here of not being able to connect to this cycle of life.
The main challenge is our psyche. Our sense of self. You understand? Our sense of consciousness. Because an average human operates dominantly in the material consciousness. That's the problem. And this has nothing to do with color. It is a universal concept problem. An average human operating on this planet operates dominantly in the material consciousness. Even many of our religious people also, they only feel religious when they are that circle of religious community, or they are doing their, your religious ritual. And that's what I'm talking about, spirituality. Because you can be religious and not spiritual. You see that? Spirituality is talking about your innate identity. You are born a spirit. The way you feed yourself, your physical health, you now need to feed your spiritual health. And that is what we're talking about in our transpersonal mental health clinic. Your spiritual health, feeding your spiritual life outside religion. Don't forget, religion produces avenue for you to identify your spirituality, but religion is not spirituality. It is purely ritualistic and it's purely physical. Spirituality is innate and it's individualistic. You are a spirit being, you are a spirit being in a human flesh. As you feed your flesh, feed your spirit. Take responsibility for your spiritual health. That's the key word.
Yeah, wonderful, brother. Thank you so much for that. You know, those are words that don't come out from the mouth of many people that are educated. They believe that they hold their allegiance to some idea, therefore they shouldn't say the truth. The truth is simply that. You see, sometimes in some of my articles I've said, even there are some people inside the Catholic Church, inside Protestant, who are Islam, who are still spiritual. I say, for example, look at the life of Jesus, no? At a point, he decided to leave the masses. He climbed to the mountain. What do you think he's going? He's connecting, making a connection. He doesn't need anybody now. He needs this time to commune, him and the source.
Yes.
We see Muhammad doing that the other day. You see, what we are therefore saying is that there is something that is beyond the book that you are reading.
Yes.
There is something beyond what they are telling you in the altar.
No.
The resource is you because you are connected to the resource. So from time to time, go there and connect yourself. You don't need anybody. You don't need any book. You don't need anything. Just you in your nude, in your nakedness, in the way that you came out. Just connect. You don't need anything. Even if you're ignorant, even if you don't know how to read. All right. Now, in this course, when people join, or maybe somebody want to learn how to start in transpersonal leadership based on the philosophy that you are teaching here, where would you say they start from? Or where do you usually start with them in the beginning so that they can have the basis?
So, yeah, we have a basic level 4 diploma. Anybody can do that, level 4 diploma in transpersonal psychology. Just come and learn about transpersonal psychology. That is the starting point. So you start, before we move into leadership, just come and learn about transpersonal psychology. And for us in Africa, it's a shock for me that most of our universities in Africa has nothing in the area of transpersonal psychology. And we Africans are spiritual. Can you imagine? Most of the curriculum in African university does not have a field of transpersonal psychology that can look at even indigenous knowledge system, and it's based on spirituality. The other day, I was listening to some expert on indigenous knowledge system, and they are talking about indigenous system, excluding indigenous spirituality. So what is the foundation of a knowledge system? It's your ontology that leads to epistemology. Now, ontology is the study of reality that determines the study of your nature of knowledge. So your nature of knowledge is coming from a nature of reality. In Africa, what is our nature of reality? It's purely spiritual. So an African epistemology is built on spiritual ontology. Imagine now we're talking about indigenous knowledge system without spirituality. Again, that's what a colonized mind does to you.
Thank you so much for accompanying us to the end of this conversation. If you have got any value here, please let us know in the comment section below.